Good morning, everyone, and I thank you for giving us the space here at KSCS to make this presentation. I'm Sylvia Kiruz. I'm a researcher and a professor at Concordia University in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. I have been working on gambling for the past at least 20 years, so can be sure that when I dream about gambling. When I wake up in the morning, I think about gambling. So, I would like today, what I would like to do is just to walk you through a project and the history of that project and what are the main findings, because now we're at a point where we have a first report that will be released in the next few weeks. So it's just to share with you some information about that. There is an iPad here because there's two team members that are far from here, one in Quebec and one in Amsterdam, but they would like to join you with this event. So Joe is...
I work here. Most of you know me.
So Joe and I are doing the presentation, but in actuality there's a lot of people who are behind that project, have been supporting that project for such a long time, and doing the work all together. So I would like to just acknowledge them. Rain Stevens, who's a research assistant, she can't be with us, she's not feeling well. And from the community, Joe, Kara, Gowan and Howie, and the other people are the team at the research chair at Concordia. So you can see that it's not just the two of us, it's many, many people behind this work. So let's just, and I apologize, I'm a professor, so we're very academic. Sometimes we try to make it simple. So bear with me if there's too much information. I'll guide you through the slides. The first part on the top, this is the most important part. It's where we started and when we did start. So that project started in 2017, and it was just a kind of by serendipity or whatever you want to call it. I got a phone call from someone from KSCS, and they wanted to ask questions about gambling. And how they reached the chair is by Googling, like we do, all of us. Our friend Google led them to the research chair on gambling when they searched the word gambling. And we had a conversation about, we need to have some information about gambling. We need help to train some people because we want our community members not to be obligated to go outside the community to get some help. And the conversation started like that. And at the same time, through the years, there have been some changes in the gambling offering. And very much with Jamie, who used to work at KSCS, and Kara, the three of us used to meet regularly just to have conversations. And I did some presentations here about what's the impact of slot machines. That was the main concern for the intervention people here, not to bring too much problems. So that's how the project started. And then we said, we need data. We need data to understand better what would be the impact and how can research collect this data in a reliable way that will help people here to be prepared and to devise some prevention or intervention measures in the community. We got funding, that's important, but then, the COVID hit, and we had to slow down on the project. So it kicked off really, it started really significantly in 2022, and this is what I'm going to present to you today. We did several things that I will talk about later, but basically we're here, and we're close to disclosing some results, so we would like to share them. Before we start on the project, it's important to present our vision and values as a team. We abide with the principle, what we call the OCAP principles. So ownership. This project belongs to the community, belong to this community, and we are just facilitating and giving expertise to collect the data properly according to the best practices. There is control from here, from this community on the project, in the sense that we really work collaboratively with the team at KSCS. We have monthly meetings, we have a lot of conversations about data collection, data analysis, especially data interpretation, to make sure that we always align with the values of the culture here. There will be access to the data all the time, so this is one part of our effort to be transparent and to, share the information all the time and get feedback from the community. And finally, possession, which means that once the project is finished, the data will be transferred to the community here, to KSCS. It will belong to the community and not to any other outside constituency. So the information we collect in this project belongs to the people of Ganawagi, and we hope it will be useful to develop awareness and prevention tools. Those are the main objectives. So how we do that, as I mentioned, we provide the expertise in terms of research and about the topic, and then we have really community experts and to bring this cultural sensitivity and knowledge to the project. I myself, and this is my positionality and I would like to disclose it, yes, I have been working for 20 years on gambling, but I came to this project with a very Western vision. So I'm working with my colleagues and with their support to decolonize my vision about gambling. This is a reality that should not be, what I have done over the past 20 years should not be just copied and pasted to understand the reality in this community. And you will see that we went on the ground, we started as if we know nothing about what's going on here in terms of gambling, and we collected the information with the community members. So it's a process, and I'm supporting this process regarding myself, but all the field of the gambling to really make this reflection on decolonizing gambling styles. Okay, so I'll take a break. What is this project about? So 3 main objectives. The first thing that we convened on with our partners here in KSCS is we need to know how people gamble. So can we make a kind of portrait of gambling habits in the community of Ganawagi. The second objective is to understand how people live, experience the memories about gambling, how they feel about gambling, and what could be the impact on individuals, on families, and on the community at large. And as I mentioned in the prior slide, the ultimate objective is to be able, with intervention people here and experts at KSCS, to be able to develop tools and to promote actually a balanced relationship with gambling. Those are the 3 components of the project. Today we're going to just present part of this this component, but basically, as I mentioned, we didn't come with any assumptions about what gambling should be in Ganawagi. So we wanted to build that with the members of the community and with the experts here at KSCS. So we started in 2022 with a sharing circle. We did a sharing circle to talk about gambling, and we gathered information. This information helped us build a grid, and we did interviews with community members and with some representatives from institutions. And all this information logically should feed into what will be happening next year, hopefully, to run a survey, to collect, to do this portrait of all the people, like of what's happening in Ganawagi. So we run the sharing circles, 1 sharing circle. Then we identified what are the themes that seem to be important for people in regards to gambling. And based on this information, we built the interview grid, and we did individual interviews with 21 members of the community. So today we're going to present a summary of what people told us, first about what is gambling, second, what are the impacts that they see in gambling, And third, about the help services, because we want to devise some assistance to support the community. We will present some excerpts, some words that people, or discourse that people told us. All the names are fictional. All the names are pseudonyms. So we invented those names. It's not the real people that participated in this. Okay. If there's any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll move on with the findings. So the major 3 topics were discussed in the interviews, because we need to ask questions, and we built them around 3 main points that we want to understand. One is how people feel, what is gambling? And then what are the impacts of gambling, and what are the help services that people know about, and what are the barriers for seeking help. I will present the first 2 parts, and then I will invite Joe to do the other 2 parts. So, of course, if we were to do a survey in Canada, we wouldn't have asked this question. In the gambling field, we know that there is very limited ways of looking at gambling in the Western societies. There's casinos. It has been studied in a certain way, and what we wanted to avoid is just to take that model and say, okay, this is how it should be in Ganawagi, and we want to just survey people about those forms of gambling. So we wanted to listen, to hear what people have to say about the games of chance. And interestingly, we found that people talked naturally about 3 forms of games of chance. The traditional forms of games of chance, social forms of games of chance, this is how we call them, and then finally, that modern Western forms of games of chance, which we will call gambling. So for the traditional forms of games of chance, people talked about an activity that is very ceremonial, and it is a way to pay respect to the creator, It's a way to keep and pass down culture and traditions. Very important to the community. And the most important point that is really, for us, was very an eye-opening. It's about giving. So in a sense, when we practice games like Peach Pit games, it's about preparing a gift, giving a gift, sharing. It's not about taking, it's really about giving. When you lose, you give. And it serves to leverage responsibilities, especially in the longhouse. When we ask people about, okay, what do you mean by social forms? We know that there's the squares, there is different forms of social games. Again, people said it's an act of giving. It represents values and morals of helping and giving back to the community. So people donate for a sports team, they donate to the school, they donate to really a project that is important for the community. It's again about this notion of giving. And they're built and done by and for the community, and that's important. So even when we lose, even when we bet on a number and we lose, we're giving. It's okay because it's a donation. However, it's less communal, of course, and it's a kind of, some people talked about gambling, to talk about those social forms, but they said it's different from modern forms because when you, it's not about placing, it is gambling because when you buy those social games or you bet on them, it's still the same concept of doing a bet and there's an unpredictable outcome. So in a sense, they function on the same logic as the gambling. But, and again, there's less risk to them, but of course when some people perceive that by playing excessively those social games, sometimes we overspend. And that can have a negative impact when money is going in there instead of paying something that is essential for their daily life, like food, like other main expenses. And finally, we talked about gambling. And it is the modern forms of games of chance, and they are seen completely at odds with the two other forms. It is, remember the giving? Here we're talking about extracting money from people. It's really taking. When you bet, you're losing and you're giving it. And there is an intention from in this game to extract money from people and make profits. And it's solely gambling, and when we delved more deeper into how they think about it, there's a lot of ambivalence in regards to this form of gambling. So positive, negative feelings about it. So of course, I'll leave it to Joe. Sorry.
So we saw in the interviews that there was a lot of ambivalence about gambling in the community. So some positive, some negative. However, it seemed to lean a little more to the negative side. But we do try to illustrate both in the report and in this presentation. So when we talk about positive impacts, there's the leisure aspect of it. It's just, I'm just going to have fun with my friends, whether it's in one of the poker houses in town or going to the casino in Montreal, either or, it's a fun time. In the same way that after a long week at work, I'm gonna go have a beer with the boys. Leisure, chill, calm. That is one aspect of what people feel like gambling can have in their lives. However, when we talk about the negative aspects and the negative impacts, a lot of the perception seems to be that gambling, modern forms in particular, are set up to create problems. And we get more into that a little later. And that there is multiple levels to the problems that these forms of gambling introduce into the community. So when we talk about gambling harms, overall there's this ripple effect. So one participant said, if I'm up till 3 o'clock in the morning gambling, and I got work at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not taking care of me. That's gonna have an effect on my family, it's gonna have an effect on my community, it's gonna have an effect on the bigger picture because there's always people to answer to. So when we talk about the ripple effects, they can look like all of these. So when we talk about financial impacts, if you're losing all of your money at the poker house over the weekend and you're not able to buy your groceries, pay for your kid to get registered for sports at school, pay for medical or mental health care for your kids, that is a financial impact that could have on the family. Continuing with the theme of ripple effects, then that impacts the family. Kids might not be able to go on the school trips that they want to do. Kids not might be able to access the services that they want to do. There's less food at home. Kids can go more hungry, et cetera, which leads to social impacts. Problems in the home. If your parents are fighting all the time because there's not enough money, that has an impact on the children in the home, that has an impact on the relationship between the parents, which relates to psychological impacts. More violence in the home, more arguing in the home, trauma between the parents, their relationships get harder, the person gambling feels less self-esteem, more depressed, starts attacking themselves while they're attacking others. And then the children see this and obviously are impacted by it psychologically. And then there's the legal impacts. Someone isn't able to pay all their bills, they get foreclosed on. Someone goes to a loan shark for money. Someone goes to organized crime for money. And this all relates to a gateway to other addictions, because when you're dealing with the impact of everything else, oh, I feel like crap every day, I'm gonna drink more. Oh, I feel like crap every day, I'm gonna smoke more. And then that could be a gateway to other addictions as well. Bringing back, though, to some of the overall positive impacts in the community, though, we talk about a redistribution of revenue back to the community. So some of the gambling establishments do have these programs where they reinvest back in the community. That was kind of the whole, hopefully, the whole point when they started. And then that also leads to the creation of employment for community members. However, as much as we see that these are possible positives and they have their positive impacts, there are two sides to this coin. Yes, it provides employment, but it's also sometimes unsafe work employment. A participant said that employees are abused, it's not good employment, they have no benefits, they have no security. Yes, you're getting jobs, but how well paid are these jobs? How safe are these jobs for community members? And are all of these jobs actually going to community members or people from outside of the community? Which relates to economic inequality and poverty. Yes, these gambling establishments will talk about reinvesting in the community, but it isn't all the money. Millions of dollars are being extracted from people who come in to play in these places, and millions of dollars are extracted from community members. which then leads to more inequality and poverty because that money is not being reinvested into the community, it's lining the pockets of private donors and private investors. And then there's organized crime, which I think we are all very well aware how that showed up in the community last year. So this is a quote from one community member. I think that in our community, if somebody's going to actually admit and say something, they're gonna help them get help. Even if it's someone you don't really know, but they're a community member, I think that we're all pretty supportive of each other. So as much as we talk about the impacts of gambling and addiction, there are services in the community that could be made available for support. So when we talk about services, social services, KSCS, obviously, we have the Addiction Response Team. There's Gambling Anonymous. There are other social services outside of the community if some community members would feel more safe and prepared to go do that. However, a lot of them would prefer to come here. We offer that service with our addictions team. There are natural helpers and healers. Traditional support is available either through like the Family Wellness Center, elders in the community, etc. And then there's obviously family and community support. In the 5 years that I've seen here working, I have seen how this community comes together so often to have each other's backs. It would be the same concept when someone is able to admit that they have a gambling problem. However, we did notice through the interviews that there are some barriers to seeking help, such as the normalization and non-recognition of a problem. So one participant said that sometimes gambling is so there, like almost everybody might have a problem, so they just don't have that problem, or they don't think it. So they either don't consider it a problem, or they really don't know what to do. So this can look like someone, I remember from the report, there's one participant that talked a lot about how like they had no money left in the bank, and all of their money was going into gambling, and yet even at that point, they weren't admitting that they had a problem, because it was a normal thing to do, or it was a normalized activity for them just to be playing games of chance all the time. Other barriers to seeking help is the lack of awareness about services. So individuals experiencing problems don't know where to go. Whenever, at least from what I've seen, we talk about addiction services in the community, usually the assumption is always drugs, alcohol. Behavioral addictions count under addictions. Gambling would count as that, but it's not as more often promoted as, say, the other ones. Like when we talk about the walk towards recovery, we talk very often about alcohol, drugs. Less so is the conversation present about gambling, for example. Then there's also the negative connotation of KSCS and colonial legacy. Some of the participants talked about how there is a very inherent fear of coming to this building due to the harm that this building and this organization has done to the community. There is the conception, we are baby snatchers. People don't want to come here because of those reasons. Which then relates to the lack of trust and maintaining confidentiality, because they assume, oh, there's a bunch of community members that work here, all of my business will then get spread into the community. This is what participants were saying. Herein lies the big problem. There's not enough promotion and prevention information out there for them to know where to turn to or where to go. This was the thoughts of one community member about why people might not know where to go to seek help. Other barriers to seeking help is the dissuasive power of stigma. So yes, participants did talk about how the community will come together to support people in times of need. And on the flip side, again, some community members might react negatively, might see stigma about seeking help. And then, relating to the normalization of gambling, it might be very difficult to disclose you have a problem. It might be even more difficult to identify that you have a problem. It could be very easy to see someone who might have an addiction to, say, meth. You'll see a physical transformation in that person. Less so if they have a gambling addiction. Now, participants did identify possible solutions, one of the big ones being education. So that would look like teaching community members the importance to learn more about gambling and its harms. And that could look like offering talking circles to the community or promotion with our amazing prevention team. The development of prevention tools, raising awareness of available services, saying that we can offer those intervention services here at KSCS in the ARS team. That there are safe spaces for individuals who are willing to come together to talk about their issues through talking circles, groups, Gambling Anonymous. And that all of this can kickstart the conversation about gambling through dialogue, particularly with youth. Bringing this information to the schools, having people talk about it more at a younger age so that as they develop through life, oh, this is something that I've already talked about before. I'm familiar with this. I can approach this more easily. One participant said, trying to do it in a way that's going to connect to people. Because once people make that connection and they feel validated and they can identify with whatever it is being named, that's when prevention can start. The more people that identify with whatever the name is, the more people that identify with it, it kind of builds a community within itself. Community, connection, relationship building. Other possible solutions, like concrete nudges. Responsible gambling measures like self-inclusion could be introduced in these gambling establishments, where when someone realizes, oh, hey, I have a problem, this place is contributing to that problem, they would be in contact with the gambling house to say, hey, I would like to self-exclude. You get put on a list, you don't go there anymore, and they won't let you in. It's very participatory in nature. Employment aid programs, so job programs. So this can again be giving safe, good jobs to the community if we were able to redirect some of that money that is in these gambling establishments back into the community. And then alternative community-based activities, talking circles, beating groups, sober events, things like that. And of course, relating to stigma, we need to destigmatize. So that would look like reframing gambling and gambling problems. So one participant said, I hope for more widespread information on the dangers of gambling and how small it gets started. And for more compassion when it comes to talking about people that are suffering from gambling. So, and it starts with me honestly, because the next time someone says, oh, my friend's dad, and everyone goes, oh, sighs, I'll say, maybe he needs that help. And then it forces them to think. So again, destigmatizing, building relationships, very important to recognizing the early signs of a problem. And then of course, possible solutions like traditional healing, connecting back to Gangahaga traditions and culture as a means to reconnect with roots and begin individual and community healing. And acknowledging that past and heal the generational shared wounds of colonialism and imperialism, and filling those wounds with the relationships to traditional values and culture.
Right, so as I mentioned, we have finished the interviews with the community members. We have analyzed the data. This is what Joe shared with you. Part of the results, the main results, and the report will be released in a few weeks. So, as I mentioned again, that previously, we had also done some interviews with key representatives from different institutions. We did an interview with the traditional knowledge keeper, health counselors, chiefs at MCK, peacekeeper, the two gambling establishments, one that is still here, with the hospital foundation, with the gaming commission, and with people from KSCS. So exactly like we did analyze the data with community members, we're at the stage of analyzing the data that we generated with these interviews. So it's more about how they see the harm related to gambling, what is the best way to, what would be the best governance system actually to deal with gambling, and to make sure that there is a return to the community. So those will be the next step, is to get another report, and hopefully in the next 6 months as the one that we're releasing today. So given that this part is complete now, we're taking all the themes that were that we found with the interviews. So what is gambling in the community, to build a survey that is custom made to the community. So we cannot just do a survey by, as I mentioned earlier, cutting and pasting from surveys that are run in Canada. The Canadian reality is a different reality. It's and we wanted to, like for instance, to give you an example, we have to ask questions about gambling that's happening with the establishments, but also we have to ask questions about social games. That's part of the reality, and we need to assess that. So we're taking all this information, and now we're building a questionnaire, like what people sometimes are used to do, question with multiple choice, or a little space where you can provide feedback. And the idea is that the survey, instead of being done with only 21 individuals, persons, or 12 representatives, we hope that we will run it across the community as a whole. And this is what will enable us to have the bigger picture. Like, it's a portrait. It's what we hope to get is as much people as possible, so we can have really a reliable, a trustworthy information. And so this is a big challenge to get people to participate. We're hoping to do that in the fall 2025. Very briefly, let's just start here with the survey administration in the fall 2025. And after that, we will have 3 sources of information, really. The sharing circle, the interviews with the representative, the interviews with the community members, and the big survey. All this will give us the most complete and trustworthy kind of information about where we stand in terms of how people gamble in this community, what are the harms that are related to gambling, how people think, or some people think about how we should manage gambling, how we should govern gambling, what's the part that should be returned to the community, and how we can equip the community in a way that we do prevention and awareness in the right way. So at the end, we're going to, of course, make a big report that will integrate all this information. But the most important thing is that we want to keep this conversation with the community. So there will be a bunch of activities where we're going to just, have sharing circles or information sessions where we want to collect all the time feedback from the community on what we are finding in our results. There's one thing that is the data, but again, what does it mean to people? How people interpret it, and this is important for us. And finally, the ultimate goal is to equip intervention people here at KSCS to be able to do some awareness, raise awareness, and have some ways to do prevention. So that will happen from now till 2028, 2029. So we will have, just as a summary, yearly sharing circles. We want to build awareness, create detection tools, and definitely returning all this knowledge to the community at the end. So thank you very much for your attendance, and we open the floor for the questions.
I'm just basically, as a member of the community, sort of a fly on the wall kind of observer of a lot of things. I notice, and it's obviously very important to talk about some of the major contributing, let's call them gambling outlets in the community. But this is like one of those tip of the iceberg kind of things where, all right, that's the obvious. But there's a lot of times, for example, where I have in a line at the grocery store, just like any number of regular outlets that sell lottery tickets. And every once in a while, there would be a person there who would spend at least 10 minutes filling out 649s and buying all kinds of tickets, and it's like, there's a lot of that below the radar kind of thing, and that's a mainstream thing, as well. It draws our people into mainstream culture and activity. Because I see the same thing outside of the community, obviously. Stand in front of one of those 649 kiosks or Lotto Quebec things. You'll be there for a day waiting for people to get done with their purchases. How or what can you do to address the stuff that is more unseen, the stuff that is not so obvious? Because I think maybe in terms of proportion, that is where you might find a lot more of those impacts that affect people, and yet it's not so obvious. There is not, the defense mechanisms that a lot of the major gambling outlets would have. Is that people are going to find their addiction wherever they go looking for it. So how would you address that?
That's a very, very good question, and that I think relates more to modern forms of gambling, like gambling. And I feel like to intervene on that behalf when we talk about the sort of prevention tools that we're eventually going to put in place with all of this data from everything and the knowledge that we've collected. Gambling can be hard to, or gambling addiction, problematic gambling, can be hard to define for a lot of people. And I think that, getting to that is going to be the core of it. Helping a lot of community members understand what a problematic relationship to games of chance and gambling is, will be able to at least start to address what you're talking about. Because, like, yeah, it could look like going to the poker houses or whatever. But again, that shows up, like you said, with the Lotto 649 and all of those. Making sure that any kind of problematic relationship to taking chances of winning something by paying money will be, I think, the important prevention point in educating the community so that they think of that, oh, when they go to an actual establishment, and then they'll think of it, again, in the line at the grocery store.
Let me add a little follow-up. We live in an age of, just technological overload. And everybody has a cell phone, except me. There are so many apps constantly being bombarded with, they bombard everybody with constant advertising, like this old Joe thing or whatever it's called, where, you play on your phone and all of this. And there is also maybe an enhancement to the problem, because people could be sitting at home twiddling on the phone and you don't see it. So it goes a lot, the roots of this can go a lot deeper than the obvious. And I think when it's quote unquote buried like that, I believe it's also very difficult for people who are under that to come out and face the issues that they might have with gambling. Because it's just like they think they're hiding it well and everything. Meanwhile, they're suffering any problems that go along with it. Yeah. It's like the whole society is conspiring, directed maybe by mostly Otto, Quebec or whatever, to profit off of people's miseries.
Absolutely. Well, maybe I will answer your two questions or interventions at the same time. Thank you for the first question. I mean, as a researcher, I think you should be on the board that evaluates our grants, because that is exactly what they ask us. Justify how you're going to really be able to get all those intricacies in the reality of people. Getting something on the surface is easy, right? Marketing firms, they do it, they don't care, they don't want, they just want to know what you're consuming. We want to understand. We want to understand the reality of people, and behind the gambling portrait, there's a lot of inequalities. There's a lot of inequality that are triggered or enhanced by gambling, by the offering actually, that is very pushing so much. So we want to get to that level. Exactly like I said, that we want to be culturally sensitive and not import any model that is not appropriate. The same thing, we want to delve deep into building a survey that is very much connected with the reality of gambling. You mentioned a Lotto Quebec kiosk here or anywhere else. You will have a lineup and a lot of people gambling and buying tickets, which is a reality. So how do we get to reflect this in our survey? Of course, our expertise, but we proposed in our methodology that at every step, now that we're building the survey, we will invite people from the community to come to our regular meetings and voice their concerns in a way that they think this is a reality that should be measured or whatever, understood in our study. So there will be over several months spaces for people to come and tell us what they think is important. And we want to get their feedback about what we are doing. Are we doing it properly? Are we leaving out something that is major that we didn't think about? And we hope that with this process of consultation with the community members, but also with all the experts here at KSCS and other researchers that are on the team, we will be able to get to that point where in the survey or after the survey, we will tap into those points of, okay, the kiosk or buying tickets is impacting people not equally, differently, more people that have less means to spend on those tickets, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the point in getting it right. We try our best. We're going to do different strategies to gather information so the survey is tapping into deeply enough into the gambling reality. The second part is online. It's whatever is online. Over our phone, someone said, I have my casino in my pocket, so I can literally, whenever, 24/7, I can gamble. So that is something that will be definitely in the survey. It's a big question about the online. It will be part of the survey. We didn't really talk about it here, but we will have a big component about online gambling, which we cannot avoid. That's the new reality, but that's also the future. I mean, the younger people have been born and raised with the technology, and this is their reality, more than the physical venues and brick and mortars spaces. So that's a good point, and again, through consultation, and when we think that there are some groups that are more prone to going in this direction, maybe we'll consult with younger people. We will have like some sharing circle just to have conversation about that and get inspiration to build our survey. So that's the strategy. But thank you for that very important comment. Yeah.
I was wondering how, if there are any plans to kind of work with other community organizations to address the glamorization of gambling. Because we see at Youth Center, they have the fundraiser, their Vegas night. It's very attractive, very alluring to people because it's fun, it's colorful, it's bright, it's nice. It looks like a good time. But there's that glamorization of the fact that it's like a fundraiser, yes, but the notions that gambling is okay and it's good and like it can help further. Like obviously, like the poker houses are regulated by the Gaming Commission and stuff, but like, do you have plans to like work with the other organizations to address that?
That is an excellent question. Yes, we want to. When we were talking, we still don't have all of the data that we want at this moment. But with the data that we've had so far, especially when we're talking about the social games, again, like you said, they're not regulated, pretty much. So it's very easy for someone from the commission or someone from one of the establishments to come and be like, hey, can you help us make self-exclusion criteria? Like we had a meeting with the commission last year about something like that. That's more officiated, regulated. When we were talking about, we had an idea a couple meetings ago where, what if we try to bridge and have those conversations with the folks who hold the social games and who run those social games in the community so that they can get some sort of training to be on the lookout for all of the things that we're looking for. So that we're spreading this kind of awareness of what problematic gambling can look like while still ensuring that these really positive impacts like the social games of chance that help fund a lot of community initiatives can still go on. So it's about training, and yes, that is an idea that we have that we will be looking into.
And again, there is a consultation before we collect the data because we want to get a good coverage and reflect in the survey all the concerns and all the realities. But once we have the data, after that, it's the really interesting and meaningful work that will start, which is based on what we know now, how can we think about prevention? So even in our interviews, some people said, young people, they talked about the young people, they talk about their exposure to those fundraising, which gives an idea that gambling, there's no harm, there's no problem associated with betting, and which is wrong, right? We don't want to create a problem when there's no problem, but we don't want neither to go into an extreme where we say, everything is safe. It's not, and we know that some social games might lead to this habit of betting and could transfer to gambling. So in that stage of trying to think about raising awareness, doing prevention, of course, we will consult with the organizations that could be using those tools before it's not just we build them and just give them back. We're gonna just do what we call a co-construction, like a work in partnership with the organizations that would be interested in those programs.
I was just thinking about something because you brought up the idea of potentially having this individual on the board, and I was thinking, what a great idea. In addition to, if there were some community members that would be interested in that elsewhere, what would be the process of getting into contact with you and being included in that research?
We're so much looking to have community members with us throughout the process. Of course, there are parts that are boring, that are strict methodological questions, but we need to hear all the time throughout the project about ideas of what's going on in the community. And that partnership is so important. So people here at KSCS, our partners, valuable partners here, are always open to getting any request or suggestion of names, or people can contact them directly. We can maybe find a way to disseminate this information for recruitment. Yeah. Thank you.
How many participants were there in the actual survey? Was that the list that you posted, or was there like an amount? 21.
So the individual interviews, we interviewed 21 community members. The number is not random. Usually there are guidelines. We want to get enough people so we can start to see what we call a saturation. So what people are telling us seem to at some point be the same from one individual to the other. So we cannot say, oh, one person told us this, another person. It has to be, we're looking for information that seems to be redundant. From when it starts to be redundant, we know that there is something common to all the community members about how they see gambling, how they experience gambling. So 21 was like based on when we hit that level where we can see that there are some recurrent themes that are emerging. There are rules for that. For the representative of institutions, we went with the main institutions that we think could be associated with gambling. For the survey, we're aiming high, very high. We're aiming to have 1,000 participants. We're putting this challenge to ourselves. Could be very utopist actually, but
We got this.
yeah,
We
we
got
hope we think big, and then of course if we get less, we will be able to do all the analysis that we want to do, but we're hoping for 1,000 respondents, which is a lot.
But all of you can help us get there.
Yeah. So you will see us more and more often close to the fall. We'll be everywhere. We'll be talking about the survey everywhere and trying to recruit people. Yeah. And the good thing is the firm or the company that will be running the survey is a company from the community. So that has know how to approach and find the places where we can have a good participation. Yes.
Something else that popped into my head. A lot of what you're talking about, and this is just my layperson's opinion, seems to be at dealing with problems once they've arisen. I always like a preventative approach, or would love to see a preventative approach, you know. And one of the things that I wholeheartedly believe in with any kind of issue is education, education, education. It is absolutely essential. Now, we talk about getting in touch with other organizations and stuff within the community. Like, if you were to say, get in touch with say, local schools, like specifically, I would say survival school at the high school level, where maybe over time, some sort of educational preventative program, you know, could be put in place that would help alleviate a lot of the problems before they happen.
Yeah.
How do you feel about something like that?
You know, I think that that's a great idea, and I think that we cannot talk, I mean, one of the objectives that we've put over there, I don't know if I can scroll up, please don't get dizzy, I have to go just to the first slides. He identified future strategies to support, promote, and improve the community's balanced relationship with gambling. That includes prevention and detection, because we're not at the same stage of problems. One, for prevention and awareness and education, is when the problem is not there yet. We want to prevent it, and that should be done at large, but more specifically and more intensively with younger people, because usually prevention is for younger people, and going to the schools that would be ideal. That would be like the perfect scenario that we hope for, that the schools will open their doors and they will endorse any prevention program that we will be able to maybe develop and put in place. Then there is the detection, which is someone has a problem. How can we identify that that person has a problem? Because there's the issue of disclosure. There's the issue of, and it's not just for this community here. Across the world, maybe 12 to 15% of people who have serious problems with gambling seek help. That's a big problem, which means that 85% of the people who have issues with gambling, they just hide it. And it's something that could be hidden. And when it hits, it's big. The bank account is empty, the house is taken, I mean, we know how detrimental, how impactful it could be on people's life. So how can we detect people early enough so they don't get to this stage of having really major problems? So those are the two things that we're hoping to work on once we finish the data collection, because we need to have evidence about what's happening in the community, and then target the places where we should address or orient the prevention, the detection. Like someone who comes here for at KSCS for alcohol and problem with alcohol, we know that in 85% of the cases there's a lot of comorbidity. When it's an extreme case, there's comorbidity. There is problems with drugs in many cases, and we leave out gambling as if it doesn't exist. But data has been showing that they go together. Those three trios, I mean, that trio is really very strong, and we need to have detection too. We need to ask also about gambling problems. So in a way that we cannot just deal with one issue and leave out the other one, because it's a cause of relapse. So I don't know if I answered your question, but ideally, yes. If we can intervene with young people, if we can be in the schools, this is where we can reach out to the biggest number of youngsters. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any recommendations, ideas, whatever. We're open to any comments, positive and negative, because we want to improve and keep progressing all the time.
I think it's great work, very encouraging, I don't know what word I'm looking for.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see it in the community, yeah. It's long overdue to have this type of approach taken.
Thank you. Yes?
Thanks for your presentation. I'm interested in, so for the survey, I know you're not there yet, but I was wondering if you could share with us if you have like already like a recruitment strategy or like how that'll be done. Just because I've heard about other surveys that will be like coming out in the next few years, and I know that there's been like some challenges with recruitment, and obviously 1,000 people is like a very, yeah, it's like a maybe tricky number. So yeah, I'm interested if you already have like ideas about how you'll be recruiting, like if the survey will be online and by paper, like things like that.
Yeah.
Really just out of interest. Yeah.
So
I know
yes,
you might not be there.
we have no, absolutely. I mean, it will be refined, of course, and we will adjust as we go with the survey. We will have to adjust, but we got a major funding from the Canadian Institute of Health Research. So this is funded from.
Yeah. Congrats.
Good. No, we're happy because it is a very important project. So we had to demonstrate that we have thought about the methodology properly of how we will get so many people to answer the survey. So it will be an online survey, so which will facilitate to many people the completion of the questionnaire. But of course, we can leave out some people that are not technologically connected, or so there will be mostly an online survey, and we will reach out to people, and then the people who cannot answer online, we will have research assistant that will go to them, and they can do it either on paper, either just, we can run the survey with them and complete for them the survey online. So we hope that to be inclusive of everyone. That's the, technologically, that's the challenge with the online. So we will have alternative ways. Now, how are we be able to recruit all the groups? Because we don't want like just one group of people. So the plan is to be in all events, announce the study, and try to recruit there. The company that will be helping us has a list already of names that are of people who are willing to be contacted over time for any survey. So that's also another way to reach out. And we're going to do a lot of promotion on social media, on different websites, and we will give some incentives also for people who participate. That's it.
Yeah.
And so we'll have iPads everywhere. Whenever someone is ready, we're ready. We can just complete the survey.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just interested in this.
But I have to say that, I've done up till now, I don't know, maybe 12 population surveys, big surveys in Europe and Canada and Quebec. And this will be the most challenging one. And I'm going to put, it's challenging, it's interesting for me to have this challenge, to be able to have a good response rate. So hopefully we will be able to make it. Maybe not 1,000, which is very optimistic, but close to
Sure,
that.
you'll rise to the challenge, yeah.
Yes, how?
Also our prevention team has doubled in size, and so I mentioned before getting a QR code made for the prevention team, and because we're often out in the community events, so whatever we're there for, well, in addition to that, we would just be like, hey, you have 2 minutes left of this, we'll have the QR code ready, and just try to get more people that way, because we're in the schools. We have community events where we're interacting with elders, parents, single, all different demographics of the community. So as a prevention team, that's something that I brought up before, that's where they can use their assistance, just in promoting the survey, just having it ready and knowing coming to this and knowing a little bit about it, so that they have to answer some questions the community members ask, but we're going to be promoting it at our events year round.
Yeah, that's what we had, bracelet, just zip and ready to go, and I like that. It's a good strategy.
And thank you, Howie, because also we're going to try to do what we call a snowball technique. So if, let's say, someone accepted to participate, we can just ask this person to be our ambassador if they're willing to do this, just to promote it in their network, and that will very quickly reach out to many people. Yeah.
I had also another question that was more maybe just about your research in general. Yeah, like you snowball, sounds like probably the best way to recruit. Is there anything from the interviews that you've done with the 21 participants that, or is there something that like surprised you that came out of the interviews or that was unexpected for both of you? I know nothing about gambling, so I wouldn't know what to expect from those interviews. Yeah, any themes that came up that you weren't expecting?
I can go first.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through the
Yeah.
years in my head. I'm like,
No. Of course, we'll be happy. I'll be happy to share this. I mean, we didn't show you how we did. I mean, those two folks that are remote are the ones who did like big part of. We have interviews of 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and they had to code all the information. It's a tedious work. It's at some point, like, it's impossible to get everything. So of course we have a software that helps us, but many months of discussion and meeting and making sure that we have the good understanding. And I think, I can maybe ask them, but I think for me, I felt like I knew the gambling field. And I know that there's a lot of research done in other First Nation communities with outstanding publications and indigenous scholars that have been publishing about different aspects of gambling, but never read something about this notion of giving, opposed to the notion of taking, extracting. And that was like, for me, it was a discovery. That was amazing. Like, of course, we can think about games of chance, of a way of giving, and that's so different, and it made me think about how we are still stuck in a framework that is so much Western, settler colonial system, that we have to move away from that and think maybe about other forms of, not betting, but playing some games of chance that could be so positive for the community. And that is not said enough, and I hope we can get it out to the wider scientific community. Yeah. Joe, maybe.
No, I agree with that one too. I think that one too was really eye-opening. I guess mine, the one that I always particularly get attached to is the extraction of wealth from the community without the giving back of it, which I guess relates to what you're talking about too, which is the modern forms is just take, without much giving back to the community. And I'm a really big proponent of distribution of wealth, but clearly these organizations are not doing that. So seeing community members identify that, I was like, okay, this seems to be a really big concern too.
And I have to say, maybe that's a big confession, but as a researcher, I feel like I'm growing in my position towards gambling, learning, like maturing a lot, because when we work on gambling in Western societies, we take it for granted. Oh, gambling is here in casinos everywhere, nobody's questioning it. We have critical approaches, but when we heard people telling us about, like especially the representatives of different institutions, peacekeepers, their concern is the well-being of the community. So anything that distracts their resources from that main objective is not good for them. So they were so clear about it. I mean, their concern is if they have the police, the peacekeepers, if they have the health resources, the ambulances, they want to serve the community. And if those resources are taken somewhere else, they will just react negatively and they will not be happy. I wish that our system outside this community would think in the same way, like really, that the institutions work really for the benefit of the members of the community, which is not the case. And I circle back to what has been said. Of course, Loto-Quebec is buddy-buddy with the government. What they want is just make money, and it's an extractive economy, and we are living in a society where we accept that it's an extractive economy that is taking money from the poor and distributing it to everyone. So that was really a good reading of the situation, and it's nice to see how institutions here in this community are focusing primarily and above and beyond everything on the well-being of the members.